everybody. Welcome to another episode of All Things Considered Franchising, powered by Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com. I am your host, Scotty Milas. All Things Considered Franchising is a podcast dedicated to the franchising industry and the future or current entrepreneur, people looking to learn more about business ownership, whether through franchising or just as an independent. Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com is a company that I own, a consulting organization that helps people research and explore business opportunities, helping you build a business model and then presenting options to you that are a best fit scenario. So today I have somebody that I have gotten to know over the years, who has, I think, probably the best handle, the best finger on the pulse when it comes to business financing. When you're considering options, and that is the president and founder of Creative Funding. I'm pleased to welcome Mona Janes. Mona, welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. You and I have been connected for a while now. I don't want to say how long, but we've been connected for a while. And your expertise in funding options. And I think there's a big difference between speaking to somebody who works for a specific organization and is selling a service versus speaking to someone like you, is that you are someone who listens, paints a profile of somebody, and then presents options on the financing side based on the financial picture of a individual or a couple or whatever it may be. Is that correct about what you're doing?
I think one of the things that is important to me in helping clients strategically figure out their funding is I have to get to know them, types of businesses they're looking at, so we can kind of put that puzzle together.
So you're really just kind of, in essence, as a consultant, a financial consultant, and primarily working with some brands directly, but in most cases working with consultants like myself and helping their clients or our clients kind of get a better idea of whether they would qualify for something, whether they're over their head in something, or they're kind of zeroed in at exactly where they should be, and then presenting all of the different financing options that would be available for that particular situation. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think that funding can be, figuring out their strategy can be a little daunting. And there's programs out there that a lot of clients don't realize that are available to them to put that funding together. And I think the most important thing, Scott, is while somebody is capitalizing their business today, it's important for me to make sure that they want to expand their business. Putting the right funding together today is important, is expanding that business down the road. So it's not about just helping them figure it out today. What's their future look like, and be able to expand that business where they didn't bet the farm.
No, that's a great point.
From the outset.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So to educate our audience, let's start with what I call Funding 101. And maybe you can take some time here and explain the different types of funding options that are potentially available to qualified clients. I mean, let's play Funding 101. So what are some of the basic ways for people to fund a startup, assuming that they qualify for, they're qualified for funding? And again, qualifications really become liquidity and credit score. But talk about the different options that are out there that people can explore, that you work with helping clients kind of learn more about.
Well, I'm going to say my age here, my 30 years of experience of helping clients figure out this strategy. If it is a small business loan, an SBA loan, I want the clients to understand that it is not the Small Business Administration lending money, it's the banks lending the money. And the banks all have certain criterias, and that client has to fit into that bank criteria. So it's almost like the parting of the sea. You've got loans under 150, which are called working capital express loans. You've got loans, I call 7A, which is over 150 and up. Each have similar criteria. The rates and terms are the same, but the cash injection is different on either side of the fence. But a lot's going to come down to, is this a home-based business or is this a brick and mortar? And Scott, I will tell you, one of the classic mistakes people make when they're doing a brick and mortar business, and what I emphasize to them is to pay attention to their build out costs, because we don't want them to get to closing to find out they estimated a certain project cost and then it's lower or higher than what they anticipated. So my goal is to make sure we go down every line item on that item 7 and make sure we have enough money to close on that loan so they can open their doors. So there's definitely SBA loans, depending on, is it a single unit or a multiple unit? That's one option. Sometimes clients don't want to do lending, and they don't want we do a loan. So we look at ways they could capitalize it more on a personal side, maybe a home equity line of credit. I talk about that criteria. Cash, borrowed against a stock account, cashing out Roth accounts, you know, tapping into retirement money without being taxed or penalized. Maybe there's partners, and we got to puzzle this together with partners. So it really comes down to who my borrower is and what they're buying, so we can puzzle that together so they're comfortable with making that step to move forward with their business, and they have plenty of money to do that. And again, we don't put them in a poorhouse or divorce court, so to
Nope.
say.
You're absolutely right. I mean, obviously, one of the main reasons that people fail at business ownership, or a business really never gets started, is because they've undercapitalized themselves. They didn't get the proper funding, or they overcapitalized and now are paying back a loan that they never really thought they would have to pay back, whatever the circumstances. But you brought up a really interesting point about SBA loans. And I'm glad you brought it up, because there is this misnomer about people, at least on a lot of the clients that I talk to, that it's not the SBA that's lending, it's the SBA backing the loan to the bank in the event that it did default, and it's the bank that's actually lending the money. So the criteria for each bank, ABC Bank, DEF Bank, if you presented the same loan to those two banks, it is conceivable that one bank would say yes and one bank would say no. It's based on what the bank itself, the financial institution, is comfortable lending within its portfolio. Some may do food, some may not do food. Some may do more or less brick and mortar. Some may do more brick and mortar, or, and less service-based or home-based businesses. Is that a good way of looking at it?
That's a great way of looking at it, Scott. Again, it comes down to a lot of people confusing consumer lending with small business loans lending. Consumer lending is your car, your credit card, your mortgage. Those are a different set of rules on lending. And then you've got the SBA, which is usually bank rate, plus prime. But what I tell clients is an SBA loan is almost like two folds. The first thing the bank has to do is to make sure the borrower passes SBA eligibility. And there's a criteria that the bank has to go through. Is our borrower, remember, this is government-backed money. So they're going to do a background check. If a client had a bankruptcy in the past, doesn't mean it's a deal breaker where they can't get an SBA loan. There's criteria that we have to go forward to say, just because you had a bankruptcy, a lot of people go, wow, I can't get a business loan. Well, that's not true, because there's many factors I have to dig into to make sure that we can go forward with an SBA loan. A lot of people say, I don't have a job, I can't get an SBA loan. That's not true. It's really understanding my client and putting together that puzzle that says this is why you could qualify, because you had a bankruptcy or you're not currently working. And when clients say, well, my credit score is 720. That's a good score. But I have to take it into a further accountable. It's great you have a great credit score, but let's talk about maybe credit card debt. Are you over the maximum amount? And Scott, I'm going to say this to you, but there is sometimes where somebody has too much liquid based on the business that they're looking at, they may not qualify for an SBA loan because they are too liquid. Now that's kind of a crazy number. If somebody's sitting with $2 million in a stock account, wants to borrow 200,000, there probably are better
Right.
avenues for funding than an SBA loan. So again, it's really understanding my client's profile and who they are and how much they're buying. There's so many factors. It's peeling an onion. You got to peel it
Yep,
back to
exactly.
get to
Yep,
the
no,
end result.
and I think that's why your methods and working with my clients has really helped them understand what they should be looking at. In other words, somebody may call me up and say, Scott, I'm interested in food, and that brick and mortar is $600,000. But when you start peeling back the onion on the financial profile, this $600,000 investment is really going to be a $800,000 investment. I may be exaggerating here. So peeling back that onion is very important. So let's jump the gun, because outside of the SBA, there's what we call the ROBs. There are term loans. There are merchant type loans that we don't get involved in that a lot. That's typically for people that are looking for immediate cash or a remodel. But talk to the audience about when they should look at a ROBs, a rollover, utilizing a retirement fund. When is the best case scenario to really consider using retirement funds in your IRA or in a corporate being administered by a corporation, because it is your retirement money. And let's face it, I mean, it may be free money or interest free, but it is still your retirement money. So walk us through that program, and when people should really kind of look into that.
So the way I explain the Rob rollover to clients is, again, getting a financial picture of, each option that they have. And if I feel that we have to access that retirement money, it's because of a multitude of things. It could be because they don't have the percentage of cash injection that the bank wants them to see to bring to the table for their skin in the game. Or if it's such a low investment that it doesn't make sense to do an SBA loan, and they're sitting with several hundred thousand in a retirement account that we can't access. We can't access all retirement money. It has to be more of money that's in a previous retirement account from a previous employer, a traditional IRA, not inherited IRA. It cannot be a Roth. So we have to, one, identify what retirement account is accessible.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing, Scott, you kind of pointed out, which you were dead on, is their retirement money. So I think the way I explain the ROBs to clients is there's the ability to set this up, and this could be an hour call on a ROB, so it's not like I can get, through the whole process. But at the end of the day, the whole purpose, I think, that I believe in the ROBs is to be able to, the way it's set up, because there's different accounts you can set up
Right.
that allows the business to be able to take some of that profit, share it with them as an employee, and build wealth in a retirement account. And it's really helping the client understand that you can lower your corporate tax liability and you can continue to build wealth in a retirement account if it's set up properly. So it's kind of a win-win for the owner, which is looking for tax deductions. When they become an employee, they're looking to build wealth in their retirement account. So if it's explained properly, there's two advantages to this ROBS. And sometimes, let's face it, it's great to have a business where you don't have any business debt.
Right.
So all the revenue that you're getting, or a percentage of it, could help you continue to build wealth for your future. So it's really strategically explaining the ROBs to the client and the way they identify it in layman's terms, instead of throwing, certain things at them, really breaking it down piece by piece. I tell clients that the ROBs is kind of like having an iPhone. An iPhone can text messages, you can watch YouTube, you can watch you can do little things on your phone, but if you haven't really dug into the manual of that iPhone and the creative things that that iPhone can do, you haven't dug into the ROBs to understand the benefits of ongoing benefits. And I think that's where classy people go out, read on the internet, the ROBs, and they're completely lost. But I break it
Right.
down as beginning, middle, and end. And I think that's where they finally have that aha moment. Wow, this makes sense for me to tap into it. I want to be sensitive that people are using their retirement money. So I want to help them continue to build and grow and expand their business and continue to build retirement money. It's got to be explained properly
Right. No,
in
absolutely.
those integral parts.
So we're talking to Mona James, president and founder of Creative Funding. Mona's organization helps people research and explore the financial options to financing a startup business or an existing business, a potential resale. I'm Scotty Milas. I'm the host of All Things Considered, and we kind of talking about right now the options to financing. So Mona, let's jump into something that I think is very, very important, and it seems to go to the wayside for a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot of people, but a good percentage of people that are exploring business ownership. They seem to think that the financing side or understanding the financing side is more of the last resort, whereas I try to preach and guide my clients to get to them to talk to you sooner, earlier in the process than later. I always look at it that it's really difficult to get somebody excited about something and then find out after they talk with you or talk to a few banks directly, which I don't encourage because they're not presenting the business opportunity correctly. They're turned down for financing. So when you look at, and you've been doing this for years, you're an expert at this. So if you were talking to our audience, the people who are considering business ownership for the first time, a startup, a franchise, let's say, when should they start investigating or learning about the financing options in their process?
Great question, Scott. I would say as soon as possible, and here's why. When I have a call with a client, my only goal on that call is to educate them on different finance options. So when we go through their financial, profile, how much is in cash and, equity. And when I'm getting a good financial picture on them, that's when I can come back to the client and say, now listen, you've got 3 to 4 options to capitalize this business. Then I go through each option, each component in more detail than what we're doing now, of course. And that gives the client kind of an aha moment that says, wow, I didn't realize I had so many options. And
Right.
these are great options. Now I don't know what I'm buying, and I don't know what they're buying. So what I want them to do is knowing that we've got options from lending of 100,000 to what, 500,000, because I'm going to tell them exactly, you've got options from a low end of 100 to a high end of 500,000. I only want that client to go out and find that business that makes sense for them. They're doing their due diligence to see if business ownership is even for them at this stage. But as they
Right.
progress with you and they find the business that they're looking for, when they get down to typically 2 businesses they're kind of comparing, then we circle back, the client and I, to break down. Now we know how much money they need. Now we can get a better feel. Is this option better? Is this option better? Is this option better? I mean, I can pretty much tell somebody on the phone, as long as they don't have any crazy skeletons in their closet, what they could qualify for a loan without even sending them to a bank, because I've been doing this so long. Not
Right.
that I want to put anything in writing, but like let them clearly see why they can afford it. It's not just throwing out, well, you can get this. And break it down. You've got the cash injection here. You've got the post-closing liquidity here. So they really envision that how they can afford it, because I've explained what the bank criteria is and how they qualify.
So it's almost, it's almost like, I guess the audience should look at this like it's almost like buying a house. Matter of fact, it's probably the same thing in buying a house, buying a car. You have to know what you're going to qualify for and understand the financials behind the numbers. I call it a reality check, a gut check. I mean, the person
Scott,
who
or kind
calls,
of Scott,
yeah, I mean,
kind of.
yeah, I mean,
Here's what I want to add to that. It is like that, but nobody's pulling their credit. And a lot
right,
of people are going to
exactly.
call me about that. I don't need to pull credit. As long as a client is being forthcoming with me, and not 100% of them are, because they know I'm on their team to try and help them do this. I don't run into issues later down the road because that client was forthcoming with me of what they had either in their past or where they're headed at their job, they're leaving their job. So they really they really are honest with me. So I don't have to pull credit. And
Right.
it's kind of like a house. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's the
that
reality check, like
formality.
I said, somebody calling up and
Hmm.
saying, "Hey, look, I saw this ABC brand and I'm really interested in it. It's a $500,000 investment, but when they get done talking to you, they may realize that that $500,000 investment based on their profile may be slightly out of reach. Whereas you would turn around and say, "Hey, look, instead of a $500,000, maybe based on your profile, unless you bring in, as you mentioned before, a partner, some type of other investor in the business, you should really probably stick between 200 and 300,000 in an investment." It kind of manages the expectations of that client. And of course, that client can make a decision at that point. I'm going to go save some more money so I can get that $500,000 business. Or, thank you, Mona. I'm gonna, I'm gonna, I'm gonna, I'm gonna I'm going to work on the $200,000 to $300,000 investment. I don't want to go that far deep into the process.
Scott, it's like a client on the phone that really wants to buy a business, but maybe they've got some credit hiccups, right? They're passionate about owning something. I don't want to squash their dreams. I want to help them figure out how can they move forward that next chapter because they got a few dings on their credit. Dings often can be repaired. So I
Right.
guide them through how to repair that. And I also want to know the time frame of it. So I'm not saying, everybody that, uh, I I have a really sincere need to help people, better themselves and better their future. I
No,
just
that's
do.
great. I mean, it's great. So let's jump guns. I mean, I think we've given everybody a comfort margin here that at least my clients are introduced to you. Obviously, there's an option to talk to you. I always encourage it because it doesn't cost them anything. And most of the consultants that you're working with, like me, don't, there isn't a fee for setting up a conversation with you. It's only helpful in the process. It eliminates any distractions. It eliminates any disappointment later on. If anything, it helps speed up the process to get a better understanding. But let's talk about financing today because we're all reading about what's going on. This great recession we were supposed to have hasn't come yet. Interest rates have risen. That was expected. We all saw that coming. How is this all playing in the decision process for people, or how should it play in people's decision process to become a business owner, an entrepreneur, kind of get into that, American dream? I mean, is lending still viable? I mean, are banks still talking to people and
Absolutely.
considering people?
Scott, I haven't seen any of this, you what's going on in the world today stopping many people from buying businesses. They're focused on their future. They're focused on building something on their own. Um, it hasn't affected anybody I'm speaking with because I believe in whatever, whatever goes up must come down. Sure, the rates are going to come down eventually when nobody knows. But has it changed the mindset of the buyer? Not really. It could be more of, a different strategic planning other than
Right.
an SBA loan because rates tend to be a little high right now. But anybody that can't have any other way of capitalizing a business and they do an SBA loan, it's not stopped them. Not many
Right.
people I'm talking to. They're focused on their future. So
Right.
it's actually, I'm very busy,
Yeah, no,
very
it's
busy.
busy time. I mean, I think, a couple of years ago when when COVID hit, I think all of us in this industry probably had our disaster plans all in place, and what are we going to do next? Because we all figured that the ball was going to drop, but it opened a lot of doors and got people thinking about business ownership. And I know my business has quadrupled, triple quadrupled, and I know you're busier than ever. So, any last thoughts here, Mona, about
Well, I will tell you one thing I'll tell
yeah,
you
go
one
on.
thing, Scott, that's changed. Again, being in this industry as long as I've been in it, my average client looking for a business, their age was about 48 to 60. That was the average age. What am I seeing today? 21 to 60
Yep,
looking at businesses. So
I,
a
I
lot
have,
more
yeah.
younger people wanting to do things on their own, kind of nothing like their parents worked the job 30 years, get a watch for retirement, and see you later. These
Right.
young, they want to build something, and I'm seeing people buying more and more multiple territories and multiple units because you and I both know to be very successful, a single unit territory is fine, but a multiple makes sense, and a multiple brick and mortar makes sense. So I'm seeing people buy more and more of those.
Yep.
So there's
Yep.
been a change in that area.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
I just want to add
Uh,
that.
w- yeah. No, I'm glad you did. Mona, it's been great talking to you. We've been talking to Mona James, president and founder of Creative Funding, financial consulting organization that works with people, providing guidance, research, and education, much like what I do on the franchising side, but they do it on the financing side, is making people comfortable about what their investment is all about and how they're going to finance the business. And in some cases, Mona has been direct with clients, and I think she indicated this earlier in a conversation that, hey, look, you've got all this cash, go out and pay cash for the business. So it isn't always about the financing side. It's always about the best decision on what direction to go in, that roadmap I call. For those of you who would like to reach out to Mona and speak to her about financing options, Mona, what is the best way for someone to get a hold of you? Is there a website that they can go to, or?
Email or phone.
Okay, yep, we'll have
They
your
can go to
contact.
creativefunding.net. Creative Funding by Design. I just lost my train of my own
Yeah,
company
we'll put
name.
up we'll have
Creative
the,
Funding by Design.
yeah, we'll all have it up there on the screen, but I didn't know if there was anything additional. But Mona, it's been great talking with you. I look forward to continuing working with you. You bring a
No,
lot of,
Scott, it's been great. It's
yeah,
been
you bring
great.
a
Your
lot of
clients,
value. Yeah, you bring a lot of value to the table. And I was talking to somebody the other day about you and your services, and I said, in all the years that I've been using your services or pointing my clients to your services, I don't think I can ever recall anything negative or anybody calling me up and saying the information she gave me was incorrect. And I think that goes a long way
wow,
to
that
the
means a lot.
value. Well, it goes a long way to the value that you're bringing to the table. And much like, and one of the reasons that we have some synergies working together and I feel comfortable is that as I run my business, it's always about my client's best interests. You're always looking at the client in their best interest and not in your best interest. It's I think there's a
Great.
it's something to be considered when people are looking at business to speak with you, because it may not be the right time for them to open a business financially, and I know you don't hold back telling
Well,
people that.
Scott, I think your clients also appreciate that you do that introduction. They feel like you have their best interest of bringing me into this picture for you because you want to make sure that they too can afford the business. And you want to give them that piece that
Yep.
helps their continue on with their due diligence. So I'm an extension of you as well. And it's a puzzle. 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 Yeah, my job is to put together the
Yep.
funding. Your goal is to find them the right business. So I think they feel appreciative that you did put us together because they feel like you're looking out for their best
Right.
interest as well. So
I
don't
think,
short sell yourself
yeah,
there
I
because
think
they
you hit the
really
nail on the head.
appreciate the hard work you do.
No, I appreciate that. I think you just hit the nail on the head that this part of the process, the financing side, is not a vanilla or chocolate sundae. This is a this is
No.
this is a process that should be looked at and explored out from every direction, north, east, south, and west. So, but everybody, we've been
This
talking to
is a
Mona.
Heinz 57.
Yes. We've been talking to Mona Janes, president and founder of Creative Funding. You've been listening to All Things Considered Franchising. I'm your host, Scotty Milas, president and founder of ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com. If you need more information or like to reach out to Mona, follow the contact information. If you're watching the video, if you are listening on audio, you can call me at 860-751-9126 or email me, Scott at ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com, and I'd be glad to forward your information or have you reach directly out to Mona for financing questions. So this is Scotty Milas, All Things Considered Franchising. Until next time, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.